half of America hates AI. It polls worse than Trump, worse than ICE. That's not opinion, it's a stat. And after what these companies have done, it's earned. But here's the twist, it gets worse, and quitting AI won't actually save you. But this isn't coming from people who don't get technology. We're talking industry insiders, even the ones building this stuff are watching it happen, and they don't like what they're seeing. And today, we're finding out why. Okay, so let's keep it real. The pushback on AI is not ignorance. Basically, it's a rational response to a system that keeps proving it cannot be trusted with its own power. So let's start with the environmental piece. You've probably heard something like, AI uses a ton of energy, and kind of brush it off like, okay, yeah, so does my fridge, right? Here's the thing though, it's not abstract at all. Training a single large language model can consume more electricity than several homes use in an entire year. And meanwhile, these same companies are actively out here marketing AI as part of the climate solution. Might as well have McDonald's promote their own food as healthy. So that's not a misunderstanding, that's a PR strategy, and people are starting to see right through it. But it gets worse. Take Uber for example. AI is not being used to make drivers safer or to optimize their routes. It's used to calculate the exact minimum pay a driver would accept before they log off for the night. In other words, maximize shareholder value. More Perfect Union did a full breakdown on this. So basically, the algorithm is treating the driver as a cost to minimize. And you might be thinking, well, is that really surprising? Workers being treated as an operating expense isn't exactly new, but what's scary is that this is a real example of AI powering this exact same mindset by companies, and it's working. A 2026 Stanford report confirmed numbers that a lot of people already suspected. Corporate funding for AI is massively outpacing investment in safety. In other words, the car is moving at full speed, and the brakes are being debated in a committee somewhere else. Now, here's what makes this next part really interesting. You don't have to take my word for it. Because Anthropic, one of the biggest AI companies in the entire planet, published a document called Claude Constitution. And in it they write, AI training is still far from perfect, which means a given iteration of Claude could turn out to have harmful values or mistaken views, possibly without even being aware of this themselves. They also write that a wiser and more coordinated civilization would likely be approaching this differently, to quote again, with more caution, less commercial pressure, and more careful attention to the moral status of the AI systems. That's the company building the thing, by the way. So that 46% disapproval rating, not only is it earned, but it's two things at once. First, real feelings from people that are seeing what the AI race is doing to our society and just hating it. But it's also a massive corporate communications failure because these same companies are doing a genuinely terrible job of showing everyday people the benefits. AI is already being used for advancing diseases that were considered uncurable, like Parkinson's. But the problem is that if the stories cutting through the noise are the layoffs, the energy bills, and the killer robots from Palantir, well, then that disapproval number is gonna keep climbing. And they will have earned every single point of it. Okay, so here's where the conversation has to actually change. Because the instinct a lot of people have is to just unplug from it all, reject it completely, and to be honest, I get it. I really do. But that's just not how this has ever worked. Not once in modern history has it played out this way. Think about the early internet, like 2000s internet. The reaction was identical. Dial-up, terrible websites. People were genuinely worried that the whole thing was gonna rot society from the inside out. It kinda did, but that's a different topic. Point is, there was everything from privacy concerns to job anxiety and fears about human connection just evaporating. All of it real, all of it valid. But still, by 2003, over 126 million Americans were online on any given day. So basically, the fear was real, the technology integrated anyway. And that's the pattern. Every single disruptive shift in modern history follows the same arc. Let's be real. AI doomerism has spread like wildfire. But when the tool gets pointed in the right direction, the results are kind of hard to argue with. AI is already accelerating drug discovery to bring life-saving treatments to patients and potentially cure what we once thought was impossible. Transportation networks are improving routes to reduce fuel consumption, while solar energy teams are deploying it to improve grid efficiency. But let's not forget the educational benefit. You now have access to a 24/7 tutor for any subject imaginable. That's not an accident. That's the tool being used correctly. Okay, so this is the part where most AI conversations completely fall apart. They spend a ton of time diagnosing the problem, make you feel genuinely terrible about it, and then just end. No solutions, nothing you can actually do with any of it. So here are 3 concrete steps, and I mean real steps, not bitch about it online as a solution. Step 1, accept that it's here. And I don't mean that as a concession, I mean it as a starting point, because here's the thing, spending energy fighting the existence of AI is like showing up to argue about whether the internet was a good idea in 2003. That ship has sailed. The question now is who's in the room shaping it, and right now those rooms are moving really, really fast without nearly enough people in them to actually give a damn about the outcome. Step 2, learn enough to protect yourself. You don't need to be an engineer, you don't need a computer science degree, trust me. You just need to know enough to recognize both the benefits and the dangers. Think about it like this. You had to learn to spot a Nigerian print scam. You had to learn to lock your phone so your friends wouldn't mess with your photos. This isn't that different. Using AI is no longer optional and neither is understanding it. Step 3, use your consumer power intentionally. Here's the thing, these companies respond to where users go. We actually saw this play out in real time. When Anthropic pushed back on the Pentagon's autonomous weapons contract and OpenAI signed it, people moved. Downloads shifted. The conversation shifted. That's consumer pressure working exactly the way it's supposed to. So basically, which tools you use, which platforms you pay for and recommend to people around you, all that adds up. And right now, it is the true way everyday people actually have an impact. And look, that's really it. No technical background required. The bar is honestly not as high as these companies want you to think it is. So here's the truth. AI is not going to end the world, but it's also not going to magically solve all of our problems. Despite the internet really wanting you to pick one of those 2 options, the reality is a lot less dramatic and a lot more fixable. The people building this thing, they're just chasing record profits at crazy speed, and they're counting on the rest of us not paying attention so they can just fly past any concerns. If this landed, like and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming. Drop a comment below. What's your biggest concern about AI right now?